Good morning, friends. It is now 7:06 on a very wet morning here in Tullamore. This is take number, I don't know, I've lost count, because when I started this it was 6:40 something and it's now 7:06 and I still don't have a video, so we'll try and get through this one. This is video number 3 of a 3-part series where I talk to you about how I went from, in 2012, a very fat, unhappy and unsuccessful young man to where I am now, of where I consider myself to be not very fat and actually in quite good shape, in a really strong, healthy relationship where I'm now married to a different person, and in a career that I find incredibly rewarding and successful, both in terms of the financial return it gives me, but also the skills, time, effort and energy that it allows me to, I suppose, invest in supporting in other people. In video 1, I talked through where one morning in 2012 I woke up, walked past the mirror in my bedroom and realised that I was incredibly fat, and over the next 6 months dropped over 30 kilos to get down to a weight that was more realistic for my height. In video 2, kind of talked through that, yep, that was absolutely great, but that came at a cost, and that cost was the lack of my ability to balance that with the rest of my life. Sure, I had these new tools, systems and habits that I could take away with me and share with other people in terms of, if you want to lose weight, and I had to do it, and that is true, and I still stand by that. But unfortunately at the time I didn't have to balance that with my work, with my relationships and with my social life, so much so that I ended up even more unhappy than I was when I was just fat. In 2015 I moved to Canada, used that as an opportunity to take a career break, work on this relationship that was failing, but unfortunately when I came back in early 2017, not only was I basically broken up, not quite yet, but very nearly, unemployed, broke and unhappy, living with my mum with no prospects in front of me. It was absolutely rock bottom, and that actual rock bottom point was a catalyst, was a trigger that actually, Shane, if you don't do something different, there's a very negative path in front of you here that you're not going to enjoy. Use this as a wake-up call, and I'm very glad to say that I did. Now, while I'm not going to talk you through in this video the exact steps I took to get from that point in 2017 to where I am now, because that is ultimately the goal of what this channel, my life coaching business, is going to be, is talking through all those individual steps in enough detail to allow you to do the exact same thing I've done. But ultimately what I want to do this morning is talk you through where the end point was. For me, I split my life up into 3 different areas. We've got work, we've got rest, and we've got play. Work is anything that brings you income. So for me, so far, that has only exclusively been my career. So where have I brought my career? So my career, actually, when I came back from Canada, as I said, I was unemployed with no prospects. When I was in Canada, I had taken a career break to work as a strength and conditioning coach on an intern kind of apprenticeship type basis, to learn some coaching skills, both in terms of strength and conditioning and fitness and nutrition, but also mindset, bringing that outside of the gym, outside of the physical arena, and I found it to be incredibly useful. Ultimately, I decided when I came home that working in a gym, working as a strength and conditioning coach, wasn't something for myself. Wanted to take those skills I learned, absolutely, knew they would be just second to none in the direction I was going forward, but didn't want to use them in that industry. When I came back, I was lucky enough to just, you put your CVs or your resumes out to as many jobs as possible, and was lucky enough to get back into the alcoholic drinks industry, which I'd been working in before Canada, in a local whiskey brand here in Tullamore. Now it is a major one, I won't say the name, but it's a fairly big company. And I started off in there as just a team member, just working on one of their packaging lines and filling bottles. I was at a coordinator level, but basically an entry level job. Jump forward to where I am now, where it's 6 years later, and actually in those 6 years I've had a number of different roles. Not only did I go from coordinator of that team to actual second in command team leader, then first in command team leader, then I ended up heading that department for a little while. In the interim, I'd also gone over to set up one of our premium production facilities, where we ended up setting where we produce bottles that were up to £30,000 per bottle. Have also done a secondment over to Scotland, where I was the site leader for 6 months time. Well, not quite 6 months, but getting close to that 6 month mark. So in the last 6 years, I've gone from team member and just working on a production line to where I am now, where I'm the operations manager for 3 distilleries and all cask filling, emptying and warehouse operations that come along with that. I've seen huge levels of success in my career, and now I am running projects across multiple sites, across multiple global locations, and I've found huge levels of success in the work area of my life. That's only partially because obviously I want to touch on this coaching business as well, but I'll come back to that. The second area of my life then is rest, and rest for me is essentially what most people would call self-care. So that's not about sitting down on the couch, or at least not exclusively, but it's also my diet, my fitness, my nutrition, how I de-stress, how I take some downtime, all that kind of stuff. And that has gone from strength to strength as well. While I've managed to obviously keep the weight off and I've put a little bit more back on as a deliberate choice, but fully in control of my weight, fully in control of my diet. And actually a number of years ago, I moved into powerlifting and took up powerlifting and had huge levels of success in that. So I competed at about 64 kilos. And at 64 kilos, I had squatted 165 kg, benched, I don't know if I did this at 64, but very close to the 100 kg bench. And at 64 kilos, pulled 225 kg in the deadlift. So moving some significant numbers there. Now, unfortunately, I ended up in the last competition I was in November 2021, herniating 3 discs in my lumbar spine. That was a challenging time. And you would think, okay, here's somebody who has formed the foundation of who he is around being strong, health and fit on the back of losing all that weight. But thankfully, all the tools and systems I had developed to bridge that gap between where I was when I came home from Canada, in the sense of could keep my diet under control but nothing else, and was in a very dark place, to now with that sense of identity, that Shane, you are anybody who can do anything, to go from there to not being able to get out of bed in the morning, not be able to get in and out of the car without holding onto the car and pulling myself in, not being able to sneeze without being in great pain. The fact that I had gotten myself into such a strong place that, okay, that was a challenge, but it was something that I was grateful for because I knew I would learn a lot, and I knew coming out the back of it that I would be happy that it happened, and to have the resilience to push through despite that loss of identity. And that's absolutely what it felt like. It felt like I had lost who I was, or a big part of who I was, in that instant that injury happened. To know, do you know what? No, everything will be okay and we'll figure it out. We just need to do a little bit more experimenting. And I think that was testament to where, to all the work I had done over the last number of years. Jump forward a year and a half or so to where I am now, still going through active recovery for that injury. So I did a good number on myself. I am back training, back all that stuff, but it's still all very heavily rehabilitation focused. But we're in a really good spot. The last element of my life then is play. And play then is it's hobbies, it's hanging out with friends, it's a relationship with my wife, all that kind of thing. And that has gone from absolute strength to strength. So not only am I more productive in the gym, more productive with my diet, and more successful with work, I'm able to balance everything in that and still have time for hobbies. So in the last number of years, I've taken up motorcycle riding. I went back to DJing, and actually I've decided to drop that again. We took up some DJing. I've got married and started off a new relationship, which ultimately led to me finding my wife, which is absolutely excellent. Have more time for friends, all that stuff, just so much more in balance, which gives us to a point of where I am now, sitting in 2023, where if I look back on where I've come from, it's that very scared, very lonely, very out of control young man who doesn't know what to do, can solve one problem on its own and can really put it to bed, but can't figure out how to do that and keep the progress that you've made there and then focus on something else without letting this slip, without having the mental strength to be able to figure that out in my head, in actions, and everything that comes along with that, to where I am now, where I don't care what comes my way, I know that we'll be able to figure it out. I might not get to where I ultimately would like to go, but that's okay, because part of the enjoyment of life, the majority of the enjoyment of life, comes from the path from where we are now to how we go forward in life. And I do have a full understanding and appreciation of that now. So that's what this is. That's what Shin Carberry coaching is actually all about. Over the next few weeks, months, and hopefully years, I want to talk you through the program, the system that I've developed over the last few years of experimentation that has worked for me to get yourself from somebody who, I know I've got some problems here, but I don't even know how to start. I can solve one or two of them maybe, but that comes at a cost of all the rest of them getting worse, and I don't know where to go. Thankfully, I'm here to help. And over the next few weeks and months, we'll develop and talk through the systems and the practices that you can do to not only figure out where do you want to go, what is the end destination, what is the goal, what am I actually aiming for here, and not what you should be aiming for, what you actually want. We can then take that end destination to break it down. Okay, where do I need to be, and what do I need to be doing, not only in 5 years' time and 1 year's time, but today. How do I make that reality for today? And the other piece that you need to know how to do that is, where are you now? And that's the other side of the equation that I'll help on is where's our current location? It's really, really good. We have our map, we know where we're going, but unless we know where we're actually starting from, we can't form directions. So we'll work through the tools and systems to get a really good, accurate painting and picture of, okay, where am I? Where's my starting point? And ultimately then, once you have your starting point and your finish point, it's just a matter of figuring out the best path forward for that. And the best path forward will be ones that, in an ideal world, has absolutely no failures. It's a linear progression from one state to another, but in reality, that never happens. Not only do we have, life getting in the way, which might be road closures on our map, but maybe that destination moves. Maybe it moves slightly left or right. Maybe the direction we want to take there isn't quite what we thought it was. Maybe it absolutely is, and we got everything spot on, but we just fall down along the way. And that's the last piece of the puzzle, is how do you actually maintain consistency, and not only that, positivity going through something as difficult as this, because this is, let's not beat around the bush, this stuff ain't easy. So with all that said and done, this is the last week of the history of myself. I know it's been brief, it's just a starting point, but starting from next week, we'll actually start talking through some of the tools and systems that you can use to actually start getting this really accurate picture of where do you want to go, where are you starting from, and figuring out actually how to go from that start point to that end point. So with all that said and done, I'm going to go edit up this video, go and finish my coffee, and with all that said and done, I've said that phrase before, is have a good week. Thanks a million, folks. See you later.